Thank you, Michael. We're going to go ahead and begin the Public Works and Facilities Subcommittee meeting December 7th, 2022. And for this meeting, Councilmember Pollard is going to chair this meeting form. So, Councilmember Pollard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I would like to start with the roll call. Let the record show that both Chair, Vice Mayor Walter, and myself are present, as well as city staff. Thank you all for being here. We'll start with public comments. At this time, members of the public may comment on any matter not listed on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And to make a public comment in person, please wait till you're addressed by the chair. And to make one using Zoom, please raise your hand using the icon on your device and wait till you're called. Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So no public comments. We'll move on to communications. Any communications?
Acting Chair Paul, no communications.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 4A, November 16th, 2022, the minutes. Did everybody get an opportunity to review them?
I'd like to move to approval.
Okay, and I will second that. Any conversation on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye, please. Aye. Minutes are approved. Thank you. We move to item 5.1 under new business, an update on downtown waste receptacles.
Okay, with your permission, Acting Chair, I'm happy to give a report on this item. A little bit of a background. The subcommittee previously received a request to modify some of our existing receptacles within the downtown corridor to address the impact of crow activity. And there was a request to evaluate different style receptacles that would prevent intrusion from crows primarily. But likewise, there was also an interest in adding receptacles that provide for not just disposal of waste, but also provide for placement of recyclable materials. In follow up to that, staff, starting with our park superintendent, did an analysis of the existing number of receptacles that we have throughout the city. Included in your packet is an overview of the receptacles, including the number, which totals 41, and then the location of those receptacles. So there's 25 within downtown, 4 on First Street, 9 within Plaza Park, and then 3 at various bus stop locations. Currently, the cans are comprised largely of just single-use garbage cans. And they do have a relatively smaller capacity, and given the kind of the small opening, they tend to not be utilized in their full capacity, because the trash often kind of sits at the top of the can, which requires someone to kind of physically push it down. And given that most folks don't do that, they can start to overflow, and they have relatively larger openings for that can enable things with crows and other things to be able to pull trash out. So we for many of our street furnishings work with Do More. They are kind of the known vendor for providing very durable type of street furnishings. These are heavy duty metal, but they're also they are more aesthetically attractive than just any standard garbage receptacle. So included in your packet is a couple of options. One is a larger option that includes opportunities for trash, bottles, cans, and newspapers. And it's about twice the cost of the smaller model. And I think it's probably more something you'd see in a very high visibility location, and probably is larger than our needs. What we spec'd out is this model 43740SH, which has two 20-gallon liners inside with recycling and trash, and they're color coded on top. There's a little picture. This is the larger one, and then we have the smaller version. Let's see, I think like it's
Lower.
yeah, there we go. So this is what the model that staff would recommend for replacing some of our existing cans. There is the opportunity, I think, if we do replace some of them, to utilize the existing cans within our parks. Some of them have pedestals, so I think I would have to look at the possible, I don't know, maybe some removal of the pedestal, because they could probably sit flat.
Yeah.
So the existing cans would by no means, go to waste. We'd still utilize them. They'd just be placed strategically in our parks. But there's quite a cost associated with these new cans. I would anticipate they probably have a 20+ year life, if not longer. So they're very heavy, very durable. And so the total cost based on what we identified, which included the cost of purchasing the taxes and then freight, because these are usually shipped, and there is a freight cost, approximately $124,000 to do all of them. Though I think from our perspective, it might not necessarily be, or might not be necessary to replace all the cans. We could even, do it on a strategic basis and look at maybe certain segments of the corridor, and keep some of the existing cans. From a kind of an operational perspective, just some things for consideration is right now our crews service the cans really twice per week, Monday, Friday. They're a little smaller capacity, and so I think it's necessary to service them twice per week. If we went to a larger can, we might be able to reduce it, go to then big service once a week.
Yeah.
But that would be something we'd want to do kind of a test case just to see, and of course contingent on events and things like that. Like we had the events on Friday night, not all the cans got emptied, but they after the event, because I think it was just so much activity going on. But there would be some additional service, because now you're doing 2 bags for 1 can versus just the 1 currently. But with that said, we might be able to just service them once per week, depending on the location. So there might be a little bit more labor on one side, but there might be some labor savings on the other. Really that's the overview. And happy to entertain any questions that the subcommittee may have about this.
Thank you. The 3 contain the green, the blue, and the red. Are they 20 gallons also? Offhand?
Yeah, they're 20 gallons also, but they're just so bulky. They're very large.
Yeah.
It would be
In
difficult to accommodate them.
The trash is actually looking on the spec sheet.
Yeah.
The recycling and the newspaper are 20 gallons, but the trash.
Okay.
So it's a little bit, the trash section a bit bigger.
Okay.
And it's kind of, I think these are probably geared more to a more dense city environment where there's a lot of newspaper being generated, but it does allow for cycling
But the ones we're looking at, the ones that spec, the trash is 20 gallons.
Right.
And the recycle-
So that each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And are the tops metal?
Yes, they're metal.
They're not plastic, okay.
No, they're metal and the holes are configured in a way, so another thing that I mentioned to David and Kevin in the past. The way the holes are configured on the new receptacles, water doesn't get in there. Because when we used to service those the existing garbage cans. It would take us during the winter, it would take us a long time to drain the water out.
Gotcha.
So you physically have to pick up the liner and dump the water out. So this way, the water won't get in there.
No.
And it's
Like the hole lets the
Yeah, water.
intrusion.
Yeah, and it's the way it's got, like the hole's got the intrusion, it lets the intrusion go in, and then the way those are configured. It's got this rim around the top where water just sits there and then runs into the can.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the design wasn't that good. And this just, the way this is runs off. But so this will be, like you mentioned, David, it holds twice, because right now all the recycling and garbage is going in the same. So this will, double the capacity, and then, yeah, I think we could probably do it just once a week instead of once.
So just a couple quick moments, I mean, there's not much for me to talk about. Is this Quimby funds? Could this be considered recreational?
Well, we have, whether it's Quimby or our Park and Rec, it may not be Quimby, because Quimby's really dedicated to
Yeah,
kind of new parks, but possibly Park and Rec. Given the location of these on the streets and thoroughfares, we'd have to determine if whether one of the other impact fees accounts may be applicable. So we have a public facility fee,
right.
because in a way this is looked at as these are public facilities. Alternatively, even looking at maybe the streets and thoroughfare fee or some combination thereof. So we want to just look at it a little more closely in terms of those fee accounts.
Well, I'm of the opinion, not to interrupt you, David, I just like to keep things out of the general fund if we can. And,
Absolutely.
but, it's pretty expensive, but if we can do them all at once, that would be great. If not, we can phase them in, and we can also consider a 3-hole container in certain areas. We might want to think about that, so that's all. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick comments. I think it's a good idea, but I just think it's a lot of money, and I think we need to really focus on trying to figure out a phasing process. I mean, it's a little bit easier to budget 25 or 30,000 a year for 3 years and phase them right in over a 3-year period, than to try to come up with 125,000 that we are really trying to do a lot of things that all important. And so I really support the concept of having a plan to do the entire 41 cans, but I would like to see it more phased. This way we can, over a 3-year period, complete the project. And that would make a lot more sense to me.
Sure.
And you might even look at the larger garbage capacity in certain parts along where the parks and some of the coffee shops are, where you get a lot more garbage over by Picks, where it's maybe having a blend of the smaller ones with maybe 4 or 5 strategically located larger ones, because of the amount of garbage that goes into them over the course of a week. So those would be my 2 comments on it.
Yeah, with some follow-up, staff can maybe a way to accomplish that would be for us to prepare a CIP worksheet that shows the phasing plan with the costs per year. And either, like look at a 3-year or 4-year phase-in period, probably targeting for the first phase, the high priority areas.
Yeah.
I know the PICS was an area where there's a lot of use. So we could look at it a little more strategically, break down this table and bring that into a CIP for council adoption.
Makes
and
sense.
then we'll know what the number is, budget accordingly.
Well, I think what I would like to see, seeing how this won't come back until next year, when we have 2 new council members, I think I'd like to see Hector and Vanessa decide which ones get replaced first.
Okay.
And just come back with a hit list one document so we can just approve it and do it. Rather than everybody debating which ones get replaced, you know, I think that's up to Hector.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to note, Vice Mayor, that the staff responsible for maintenance of our boulevard has transitioned from parks. But I know Hector has the most historical knowledge.
Yeah.
Of this. So anyways, I just want to point that out that the parks team wouldn't necessarily maintain the can.
One good thing David brought up earlier on the existing garbage cans that we have now. What I was planning on doing is maybe bringing those into the city park and install the existing garbage cans now, once we remove them, and maybe limit the number of times that the garbage truck drives around the park. So we can just strategically set them into the park. And that way, instead of them driving three times a week, maybe they just limit it to one time. And for recycling, and that'll save the trail in the long run. Because that's what's ruining the trail, the garbage truck going around. So that,
Is there a way to relocate those now that we're redoing the basketball?
I was-
relocate those so they don't have to go drive through New York at all?
Miguel and I started looking at into that last week, and I think there is a way to maybe move some of those dumpsters on the exterior of the park. So that way the garbage truck doesn't have to be in there, not just for the trail itself, but just driving around while folks are using the park.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be good if they're well.
Oh, yeah, show a couple boulders on the exterior of it. I think it can be
It's a
possible.
nice looking fence that
Yeah,
hides them, so to speak, but
And, yeah, and I think again, some of the sections in the park would be wide too,
yeah,
like around the pavilion,
yep,
you know, that's used pretty heavily.
yeah. I've never been a fan of the garbage truck ruining my park.
well, it doesn't make sense. Really should relocate those.
Hector, do you know, if we'll be able to install these, or is there gonna be any expense related to installing them?
No, I think we're capable of installing them. I think between streets and parks, we can probably get together and help out and install them. They're looking at it, or there's a couple bolts on the interior.
Screw into concrete.
It's anchored into the concrete there. There's a little spacer that goes under it for water to flow.
Do the lids come on?
What's that?
Do the lids lift up?
They don't. They just the
door.
yeah, the door. There's a little handle there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Perfect. Okay, anything else on that one? Great, that's good news. Okay, we'll move on to item 5.2, an update on the recreation vehicle incident that kind of damaged one of our planners up on the main drag.
Yeah, so we had a vehicle incident, a private vehicle that resulted in damage to one of our downtown planters, particularly the cap on the exterior of the planting area, and the planters do have somewhat specialized material, but Hector is working on procuring some materials.
Yeah, after a few days of investigation, they of course, the company that originally installed the ledge, the seating ledge there are no longer, and I guess they're out of business. So we're kind of having a little bit of a challenge locating that same exact ledge. So I think what we might have to do, we might have to retro what we have now. I got two local vendors looking into it right now. Supposed to have a phone conversation with them tomorrow on locating some of that ledge. But if the worst case scenario, if we can't find it, we might have to get rid of the rest of it and just add something similar. This one has a little curve on it, so we might have to, but we're on it. We'll try to make it look so it doesn't look too much different than the rest of them.
Well, it's gonna look better than it does now.
Yeah,
Because it looks pretty,
yeah, it's bad.
did we ever, their insurance, where are we at with that part of it?
Yeah, this matter is before the Sonoma County courts, and we submitted our request for I can't think of the technical term, but
Restitution.
restitution, that's it. And I know that was subject to hearing, but we gave the full cost breakdown of the damages that we experienced, which is well beyond just the planter. It was streetlights and staff response and trees and irrigation. So we're still waiting for that process too.
Do they have insurance on the vehicle? either?
My understanding, there was no
No
insurance.
insurance, okay.
Because I did the dental building fence
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah, I don't think we, since that was private facility,
Yeah.
we put that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was quite a bit. I know it was all part of the police report.
Yeah. Well, thank you for staying on top of that.
Yeah, no problem, yeah, we'll
Needs
get
to get fixed. Yeah. Okay, move on to item 5.3, downtown sidewalk pavement conditions. And this would be Vanessa, I believe.
Yeah, so this matter was brought to our attention by a resident within nearby downtown regarding pavement conditions. I think four separate locations, including Lake and Main Street, the Boulevard, and the sidewalk in downtown. And those conditions were reviewed by Vanessa and
myself.
Councilmember Paula, and I think staff also looked at them. And I think they're all areas that are in need of repair, and Vanessa was kind of considering options for how we approach those repairs. And I know from my perspective, the existing pedestrian access at sidewalk or at Main and Lake Street is something we should really look at, maybe possibly just a complete reconstruction there. It's pretty, it doesn't meet current standards, and it's given its inner downtown, there might be an opportunity to look at a new crosswalk as well there. But anyways, turn over to Vanessa.
Yeah, so as Councilmember Paula mentioned, him and I walked the site last week just to kind of look and see what opportunities there were. And so at this point, I've directed the streets crew to do some temporary fixes, which is a combination of asphalt patches in the sidewalk to make for a safer walking surface. And at some point here pretty soon, renting a grinder and grinding down a couple of areas. Hector and I also discussed a couple of spots where the trees appear to be uplifting the sidewalk. And, you know, as we saw on East 2nd Street, that's a little bit more of an involved project, but I think we can move forward with some temporary patches to make things as safe as possible in the meantime, while we look to some long-term solutions.
Thank you. There are some pretty bad spots, and we recognize that, so they really are somewhat a danger. And I know, do you have a timeline as far as the temporary fixes in the next?
You know, I don't. I sent an email to the streets crew. I want to say a couple of weeks ago here at this point. That would have been November 30th. And I haven't heard back. They typically will send me an email letting me know when they've completed a work task. It was a long list of stuff that I gave them. Anyways, I haven't heard back from anybody, but I can certainly follow up and ask about it.
I think it's important that we have a timeline and we share that timeline with the reporting party. These are serious concerns that we want to make sure that they are a high priority with our street group. Michael, is there anybody in the audience?
Yes, it looks like Sue is with us today. They do not have their hand raised currently, but Sue, if you'd like to speak on that item, please raise your hand.
Okay,
No, she has her hand up.
yes. Sue, would you like to? Susan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for considering my email and my input, and for following up. And I know that it took your time and staff's time, and I just really appreciate it. And I did hear David Kelly indicate that the consideration possibly for some kind of a crosswalk or something in that area where Main Street and Lake are. And I just appreciate that consideration as well. It's just a kind of a weird intersection to navigate and not many other options. So just wanted to appreciate all of your time and thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention and thank you for staying on it. And as soon as we get that temporary schedule timeline laid out, we'll certainly communicate that to you so you're aware of that.
Thank you.
Just one more follow-up question. Vanessa, when you send the streets department an email like that, is David and Kevin CC'd on that?
Yes,
And could you also, when you maybe send it off again, just let them know the council is asking when this will be done?
I will.
If it's okay with David to say that.
of course.
Yeah, because we are. I would like to know.
Whatever it takes.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully we'll hear something this week. Reply. Okay, anything else on that item? The one thing I do want to say, Hector, is on Main Street as Vanessa and I were walking, where the city parking lot is behind. I mean, that route is really high, really high. So take a walk out there, but I think the tree's gonna probably have to go, to that route. It's like this
Where is that, Jeff?
Main Street, where the city parking lot is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So right after you guys, right after your meeting with Vanessa that day when you guys walked, Vanessa sent me an email. And I went out there and looked at it and also had a conversation with Vanessa on the phone. Just considering the type of tree that we have there and the way the sidewalk is lifted. The best solution there would be to remove the tree and to add something more suitable for that location. The type of the ash trees, they don't really like too much grinding. Like sycamore trees will be able to take the, cutting smaller roots and grinding roots. The ash tree doesn't like that. But if we were to shave the root down, the tree would probably end up dying. So the best solution there would be to remove the tree. And of course, excavate the section that's uplifted and re-pour it.
Having sat on the REMA board for many, many years, I've seen a lot of litigation surrounding these types of.
Yeah, luckily we have, it's kind of creating kind of a ramp, so there's no tripping hazard right now, but
Well, my biggest concern on all these areas is at night when people can't see and you're walking, the lighting is weak at best. And you're walking down the street and not really aware, and all of a sudden they have to trip and fall. So it's an important
absolutely.
thing. So, okay. Well, I look forward to that update, Vanessa, as soon as you get that response. I did take a quick look, just so you're aware, as I drove to this meeting, and I don't see, but it doesn't look like any activities taking place. So. Yeah. We'll move on to item 5.4, update on Vista View paving project.
Okay, well, a little background on this. We received resident complaints regarding the pavement conditions on a section of Vista View Drive. It was kind of where the hairpin turn was located. And the asphalt was, I think the technical term is alligator in that location. It was in very, very poor condition. In response, interim city engineer Apodaca prepared an informal bidding document where we sought informal bids to repair that pavement section. The lowest responsible bidder was local contractor Regi. Regi's proposal was $19,193, and that was the cost of performing the work. The work has since been completed. To give you a sense of just almost $20,000 to do that small little section there. But it's almost a complete replacement of that asphalt. You see from the pictures that you know, on the other sides of the pavement. There's still some remnant alligator, but that was really the worst section, in that particular corner. And so, you know, it was a much needed repair. And Vanessa and I have spoken that, you know, this probably kind of reflects the kind of work, is the scale that we can, you know, accomplish with the funding that was set aside by council to complete. We're receiving more and more of these types of complaints where we're getting these concerns expressed about these smaller sections of roadway. And to put together a large project, you know, often takes a lot more funding, a lot more time, and a lot more expense. And so we did use the funds that the council set aside, the 200,000, you know, portion of that for completing this work. And we're going to use probably similar processes for other areas. And we'll be bringing those forward for subcommittee consideration. But we just really want to give you an overview of the work that was completed, and the process that was involved in you know, getting the cost estimate, contracting, and getting the work completed. We've heard from the residents up at Vista View, a couple of them, that they're very happy to see that work being complete. But there's some additional areas that we've seen. You know, there's a pretty detrimental section, Lake Street. And then what's the other area, Kevin?
Antonio Street, Crestview. No,
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So we're kind of looking at, and maybe even the corner at Lake and Maine is kind of using similar process to kind of complete these and make these fixes as a way to, you know, make incremental progress on some of our poor pavement conditions. So that's really an update, Vice Mayor, Chair, on this project. So at this point, we're done and basically wrap it up.
So a couple of quick questions. On Vista View, was that a layover or was that a dig up?
well, it was, you know, for the most part, Vista View's particularly challenging because there is an old asbestos cement water line under that road. And my understanding from city staff is that the water line is just tremendously problematic. And so before doing any really robust pavement repairs, I really think that water line needs to get replaced, which is a much bigger project. And so just to kind of address the immediate need and concerns of the residents out there, we had the streets crew go out and do an extensive pothole patch. But the particular area right in front of 210, that hairpin turn, if you will, was just too much to patch. It was beyond alligatored. It was way more than that. And so we did do a small overlay project. It is an overlay per city standards. They did some conform grinding where the road, the new surface meets the existing, and at the residential driveway there, they did a manhole grade ring rise to accommodate that 2-inch overlay. And they also did some special work around the drop inlet, just to make sure that that's all kind of like, you know, put back in about the same way that it was taken out.
Now, on the Antonio was one that was mentioned. Would that be a pave over as well?
You know, I think for right now, I'm not sure what the underlying utilities are doing out there. I would have to look into that, but for now, I think we can just do a pothole, you know, a pothole repair. Antonio Street doesn't see quite as much traffic as Vista View does.
Yeah. And you mentioned Crestview.
Clovercrest.
Clovercrest, I'm sorry, yes, Clovercrest,
Now, you're just talking about the city portion,
Yeah.
correct,
okay, which goes up a little bit, right?
correct.
Okay,
It's similar. I think Clovercrest is kind of similar. It's got a little turn where it's
yeah.
alligatored.
Yes, yes,
Well, Vanessa, you know, I'm big for doing the job half-assed. You know, pave overs are fantastic. We can get a lot of mileage over them. And but I think we're a little better off, but that's your expertise, so thank you.
So, if we could just go back and talk a little bit about the funding. You mentioned you had 200,000, that was for striping and the repairs, wasn't it? Is that?
That funding amount includes the budget for the striping work.
Striking, okay. I guess what we haven't got to that item, but when we do to the striping update, I want to kind of get an idea of between the study that needed to be funded coupled with this additional 20,000, what we're expecting to be able to accomplish with the funds that are available to fix the striping situation, or at least get that off.
And with your permission, acting chair, maybe if it's okay, can we take up standing item 6.7?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So we had our meeting with W-Trans, who's preparing our striping plan. And that project is, we've executed the agreement, and then we've had the kickoff meeting. And we conveyed to them, well, Vanessa asked the question, what do we think based on the area that we are focusing on, which includes, the boulevard, Treadway and Foothill. And the answer was costs were changing rapidly. And at this stage, they were unable to give us a cost estimate. With that said, we did indicate that the budget would be an important consideration. And we were going to look at, whether there, we'll get the first phase of the striping work done to really look at it at that point, so that we can get kind of a number of what it would cost to do at least striping on the boulevard, and be able to do a budget check-in as to where we're at and whether we can, be able to complete that work. Because we're thinking it might be necessary, given the cost escalation environment, to carry out the restriping in segments. Ideally, it'd be great if we could kind of do a contract, do it all at once. But it may exceed our ability to do that, especially given the boulevard has such extensive striping needs. We talked about, it's obviously missing, and you brought this up, Chair, missing the block dots. There's not only the center line striping, but there's also the edge of pavement striping. There's the ancillary striping, and then we talked about the difference between thermoplastic in the drive lanes versus painting in the other. So our goal is to position ourselves to be able to go out to bid in early summer or late spring in 2023. Then we'll have a real solid number, but we're going to have some cost estimates before then. We'll do a check-in on our budget.
So are we looking to see what we can accomplish in the striping part in-house? What really needs to be done by contract? We do have in-house public works staff that I think can do some of this. They did it in the past, I know. And so I'm not really sure if we could maybe have a joint parallel program going down where some of the smaller projects could be done in-house, and we focus, like the block dots, putting the dots down. The location, I don't think is going to change where the dots go. So it would be pretty much just a matter of the install of the dots. It'd be different if they had to have it redesigned, and we're not sure if the dots are going to be in the same spot, but going down the boulevard, they're going to be where they are. So I think, it's a lot of money, and we got a lot more work than we have money. The other comment I wanted to make is I would really encourage you, if it looks like we need more money, to come back to council asking for an additional allotment out of the measure and transportation fund, so we could tie it, because we're going to get a lot more done doing it all at once than going out piecemeal it to bring them back in with all the equipment. So it's been, I don't want to use the word neglected, because it's not an intentional neglect. It just hasn't been maintained to a point where now it's really bad. So I really think we should try to maximize our money to do as much as we can. And we need to maybe add that to our street crew as well, to do some of the smaller ancillary things like maybe the parking spots and those smaller things that they can do, you know, those over the course of several months and knock that stuff out. And the block outs, I really think that's something that they can do. They've done it in the past. So again, I'm not sure how you feel.
No, I agree. As much as we can do in-house
Yeah,
and as inexpensively as we can do it is the way to do it. I know sometimes it will cause redundancy that we'd have to come back and redo them again, but it is what it is. And at some point, we'll get them all done the right way. So,
and my biggest concern is the arterials, and we have two of them, and they're bad, and school zones are really bad in some places, actually to the point where they're not really school zones anymore. The yellow paint's pretty much gone. So, I mean, are you fine with them coming back to council and say, we got the bid, here's where we're at, here's what it's cost? I think we're gonna get more for our money if we have them do it when the equipment's all here together, rather than trying to phase that kind of a project in over time. It's going to be more expensive because they got to come back with the equipment. So I agree. So does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just gonna be a function of, you know, what the cost is and what we
Yeah.
have to run.
Well, we still have some money in the Measure M fund, and I think because of the need to do the analysis coupled with the amount of work and the repairs, we should revisit that to try to get the maximum bang out of that. That's really the way we're gonna pay for it, you know, so. Okay, anything else on that? Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so we'll move on then to the standing items one.
we got 5.5, which is Common Drive.
Oh, okay, thank you, because we skipped that. No, right, yeah, 5.5, thank you. Tarman Drive parking zone sign request.
All right, Vanessa, you wanna provide an overview on this item?
So this, let's see, I can't recall when the original request came in. It was some time ago that the business owner here at Los Pinos Market out there at 3 Tarman Drive was having trouble with parking, kind of more long-term parking occurring in front of their establishment. And so I directed the streets to go out there and update the existing curb painting and do new curb painting. And it seems that now recently, the owner out there has come back and asked for signage to go up in front of his establishment.
I think what he has there, Vanessa, is right across the street is the Alexander Valley Medical. And I think their patients are parking on that side of the street, guilty myself on occasion. So he's strictly talking about on Tarman Drive, not on Cloverdale Boulevard, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, I could see the need for that from his business. Because like I said, it's the employees, of course, should be parking in the parking lot, and parking is in demand there, especially when the Alexander Valley Medical Center is in operation. So you know what we mean, Joe?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna jump in on it, that, yeah, it's one of those, putting a time would probably, the enforcement aspect would be problematic, because I don't think we really do enforce the time parking. It's more of an honor system, so to speak. So I'm not really sure that's really a good solution.
Well, I think it's a good start. I know there's a lot of 10-minute parkings or limited parkings that we have about town, in front of the donut shop, in front of the Low Now Press. And I think for the most part, Joe, the individuals respect that. And they're conscious that they're in a 10-minute spot.
The problem comes, though, Gus, is when they don't respect it and the phone call rings saying this car's been here for an hour and it's a 30-minute parking, then what's the next step? So and having been on that side of it, you really want to make sure I don't disagree. I have no problem putting a time limit on it. I think that would make sense. But we also need to have the second part in place, the enforcement of that. Because I could see that being a problem in that location, because the letter points out a lot of its residents that live in the area that are parking there. And so that's going to be, it's going to be an issue. If they continue to do that, it's going to get into an enforcement. And that's something that the police department will be tasked to do. So, I mean,
I did direct some very specific curb markings to go in out there. And to be fair, I haven't looked to see if those have been done yet. I've got it on my list when I'm in town next week to take a drive by and look there. But there should, in theory, there should be a 20-foot, there should be red curb in front of the hydrant. There's a hydrant in front of the establishment. And so no parking in front of the hydrant. There should be a yellow curb for 20 feet of loading zone that would in theory be for that establishment. And then there should be 20 feet of green curb with 20 minutes stenciled on the curb. Now, if he's still having the problem and the curb is painted, I think I'm with you. I think it is just a matter of enforcement. I think I would hesitate to install signage in addition to the curb painting. I don't think you need both.
I think it's a good approach. I just want to make sure that it's coordinated with the police department because and we need to check our ordinances to make sure we do have an ordinance that does address 20-minute part-time parking, because that would be the site ordinance. And that could be done by a community service officer as far as the actual site as a parking enforcement, or it could be done by a police officer. But I think that the main thing is that it's a circle and everybody's got to kind of be aware of the process, because it could become a problem. And if we don't have the enforcement aspect in place, it's going to become a real problem for the police department when they keep yelling that, calling it upset that nobody's doing anything on it. So I'm good. So, okay, we'll check that out on the parking. So the next step is the enforcement aspect. Hopefully that won't become an issue, but if it does. Okay.
Now, when did you give those directions, Vanessa, to have that done?
Oh, I would have to look. Let me see if I can dig that up.
Vice Mayor, if I can just, I think one of the necessities is to have more direct oversight of our street department and following up on these requests. And we're going to be bringing forward on next Wednesday to council employment agreement with our public works director, and with an anticipated start date of January 2nd. And it's our goal. Of course, Vanessa will continue to serve as our city engineer, but one of the key goals for our public works director is going to be to provide that direct oversight and management and work tasks of our staff. And so these types of requests, when they come forward, we'll have more a direct follow-up.
Okay.
So the initial request to the streets crew was on August 2nd in 2022. And the next day I got a confirmation email from Curtis saying that had been done.
The next day?
Correct.
Okay.
So if it's done, this is just coming to us in December. So obviously there's still a problem.
That's
If
what
it
it
wasn't
sounds
done,
like.
or
His light is dated November 14th.
that's what I'm saying. If it was done in August, that gets back to the enforcement. If it is in place, they're ignoring it, and we get back to that problem. So
And so the police department was copied on some of these response emails about addressing this, but I'll be sure to bring it up with Chief Ferguson
Yeah, maybe
the next staff
break
meeting.
up at the, your staff meeting, and just kind of, the main thing is a plan, I mean, because the complaints are gonna continue, market it is only as good as if it's respected, if it isn't, you're gonna have the problems. So. Anything else?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you, guys, appreciate it. Okay, now we'll move on to 5 items, standing items 6.1, and David, you can just go down the list if you don't mind.
Okay.
Just go down.
So the first item, 6.1 is an update on the car wash. This was a matter that was under review by administrative enforcement officer or administrative enforcement order, and we did receive that order. It was positive in terms of upholding our code enforcement concerns, and the order was validated or reviewed and validated, and the responsible party, Mr. Court Amelon, was provided notice of the order and required or provided 30 days to comply with the cleanup. We're currently within that 30-day time frame for compliance, which I think is December 17th. The order was issued on November 18th. So we're right now waiting to see if the property owner will comply with the order. It does have financial implications. If it does not, we're also concurrently working on obtaining cost estimates to actually perform the cleanup work and remediate the current health and safety issues, the open pits, the trash, and so forth. And then we're also looking at a kind of a dual track purpose or a process where we'll seek recording the lien against all the properties of the property owner. And there will be obviously additional costs once we know those. This is assuming the property owner is to follow through with cleanup incurred from the city's perspective to perform that work again prevailing wage. So all those costs would be things that we would lien the property owner for.
And how long would the property owner, before we could foreclose on the property to get our money back?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Our current code enforcement officer did indicate it's best to seek the against all their properties rather than one.
Personal judgment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we'll follow up on that question, Cherry. I don't know exactly what the timeframe is in terms of, once it's recorded, and that takes court, I think, court order. What's the timeframe for getting paid back?
Good.
So there would be costs, obviously, that the city would incur and be subject to, future reimbursement through the lien.
Yeah, we had one guy go take a look at it. I haven't heard back, we're waiting for a quote. So right when that 30 days is up, we can get him in there, clean it up, tag it on to what Avalon owes us.
And then we can start looking at how we recoup our money.
Yeah, Robert's will be here tomorrow, we'll ask him that.
Yeah, because it may take a court order to order the property sold on auction or whatever they do, the
Yeah.
process. Get our money, and hopefully everybody get the property. So,
Nice.
Yeah, the current total amount due under the administrative order is $19,530, and that doesn't include any cleanup costs. So
Yeah,
there'll be some additional costs on top of that.
yeah, could be quite a bit of cost, so. Good, well, good job. I'm anxious to see that blighted area cleaned up. Go ahead, David.
Okay, so moving forward, so both the attachments here.
The red light and the paint stop ahead advisory.
Yeah, so at our last meeting of the Public Works Subcommittee, we discussed the the concept of providing some, like a red light type of signal at the current stop at the intersection of North Street and North Cloverdale Boulevard. Subsequent to our last meeting, we did some research on some options, and our city engineer looked at this solar powered flashing beacon that can sit at the top of the stoplight. I think seen here on the screen is a picture. Included in the packet is a memo with some different options. And so I don't know, Vanessa, if you want to provide an overview of the options you prepared.
Okay. Okay, so the overview is there on the first page in a table. We've got 4 different equipment suppliers. 3 of these suppliers are for this beacon, if you will, this top of the sign mounted beacon. And then here on the third row there is for an LED sign, which is not the beacon on top, but it's rather the flashing lights that go around the perimeter of the stop sign. I think any of these options has the potential to increase visibility of that stop sign. We're hearing from our neighbors that have recently installed some solar light infrastructure. It seems to be a win-win for everybody. They're not getting any pushback from the public on the solar panels, which was some concern there for our neighboring agency. And so really, I think that, these look like they're pretty relatively low cost. It looks like they're easy installation that I anticipate our crews would be able to install pretty easily. Not all of the quotes came in with shipping and or taxes. And so I did do some estimating to make sure that we were all looking at the same thing. And so the totals there are estimated based on some general assumptions with shipping and taxes.
Yes, there's kind of different models. One's you can see the stop sign with the LED lights, and that can be solar powered. You can obviously add the school zone flashing as well, which there is I think an existing marker located to the north if you're heading in the southerly direction. I think when we're looking at it, we thought maybe the stop sign with the red flasher on top might make the most sense, just to ensure that it's visible. And again, it doesn't require much additional work. Maybe a pole replacement or maybe retrofitted. It's solar powered, and it seems like it would bring additional visibility. You could maybe couple this with, we have to see if you could couple that with the flashing beacon. I don't know if they can work together, but certainly either one or both might be feasible. So we wanted to bring that back to the Public Works Subcommittee.
Thank you.
So Vanessa, you're recommending R1-1?
Well, it really, if we're looking at the beacon, I would be looking at traffic safety warehouse, which is the last row, just because of the cost. That seems to be a lower cost there.
So, let me-
Just for talking purposes and to maximize visibility, Traffic Safety Inc., for the LED flashing sign, I feel like those are a little bit more visible. We could also potentially combine the two. One of these pages here, I can't quite really tell which one. The second, yeah, keep scrolling down here. One of these shows them both installed. But okay, that's this one here. And so yes, this is kind of an option shown with both the beacon and the flashing stop sign. That would certainly do maximum visibility, but I didn't get a quote for the combined.
So it'd be a red lighted top with the flashing
Stop sign below, correct.
LEDs around the stop sign.
Yeah, TS50, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
shows with one red beacon and a flashing. And what was the cost on that one, Vanessa?
So that's just shown as an option. The cost from traffic safety for the beacon on top.
It's 3,300, I think.
Well, see, this is Traffic Safety Inc. versus Traffic Safety Warehouse. What I believe we're looking at are the two middle rows of that summary table. And so we probably won't have to double dip into the shipping, but we're probably looking at a combined total of about 11K.
It's damn expensive.
I know it.
So I think personally, I like the flashing red. I'm not sure we need both. I think it might be an overkill. The flashing red, again, I thinking back at the vehicle code. There is a section for both arterial stop sign, which is the one that says stop. And there's another section for the flashing red requiring a motorist to stop. So they're both enforceable signs. I think the key is the stop sign itself is not as visible and people are not stopping, frequently not stopping. I think that flashing red will solve that problem. I think it's going to stand out. I don't think we need to go too much further than that. And just, if that doesn't solve it, then we could always look at the next of replacing the Stein with the enhanced. But I really think the flashing red would probably take care of it.
And we're talking about coming from the north to the south only, right?
No, both.
Both directions. This quote is for two signs, so
Yeah.
one in each direction.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I could do that, because like Councilmember Paula said, we can always add the stop sign to it. And I also like it because it doesn't necessarily have to stay there forever. I don't know what the occasion will be, but we can take them off and move them somewhere else. So, yeah. So what do we do now? We let David go ahead and order it?
With your direction, I mean, we would probably, the funding, I think that the council set aside, it's generally for street work and talks more about pavement, but we didn't have, I don't know, we would have to see if we have a separate budget for these type of fixtures. Otherwise, we just use the street funds, and then when we bring back the discussion on costs for the striking, adjust accordingly at that point or in a year. But I think we can move forward.
I think we need to. It's a real safety issue, especially with these schools right there. It's just something we need to. People running them. I mean, I was up there just the other day again, and mostly coming north or going south. Actually, I was going north, and they just come right through there. Nice, and I don't think they see it for whatever reason. They're just not seeing it. So.
Well, that brings me to the next topic. I thought we were going to put that speed monitor little thing that we just purchased up there. So what do they call it?
Radar trailer.
Yeah, the trailer.
And we have a plan to deploy that. We are currently finalizing. We put it out pretty quickly when we got it operational, but recognize that we need to ensure that it is registered with DMV. So we're getting it registered before we put it before we put it back out. So our Chief Ferguson is working on the registration process.
Okay.
But our plan is to get that back out and deploy it as quickly as possible.
Okay.
We'll be placing that. It'll be moving around, so we'll be using it in different zones of the city based on traffic concerns and complaints.
Put up a Jefferson Spring.
Okay, so I understand that we're going to move forward on that one.
Yeah, with the so if you want to make a just good formalized recommendation, we'll do it.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Does that have to come back to the full city council?
No, it's within the purchasing authority, and which would have to use street funds for.
Let's go ahead and do it.
And when you put the analysis together, to come back to council, potentially to take some more of the road maintenance funding from Measure M into there, you could show these projects that have come to light. and
Right,
what
right.
we're doing. So,
We, at senior staff, we discussed putting the kind of a tracking worksheet together to show what projects we funded, so you can see what we budgeted and what the fund utilization is for the different projects and activities. We'll have that.
And I'm sure this is not the case, but just to make sure, can we make sure that we can buy replacement parts for these? Like, can we buy a couple of red lights? Because we have that problem now with our streetlights, you know, the bulbs are outdated. We can't get them anymore. We had that problem with the crossing down on Hillsburg Avenue and Cloverdale Boulevard. When they were in the ground, we could replace those lights. Can we just buy some light bulbs for future burnout?
I do, when we make the order, we can ask them if that's available. They're LEDs, so in theory, they're supposed to last 10 years.
Yeah, except for Cloverdale, you can find print, except for Cloverdale.
Too hot, the water got in.
All right, good point. Thanks. Okay, David.
Okay, moving forward, next item is infrastructure improvement cost estimates for bicycle and safety improvements on Osseo between Citrus Fair and First Street. And I think that was what we originally developed cost estimates for, and I think the idea was to break that down into kind of smaller components. And Vanessa, I believe that work is still in progress.
Well, and I sincerely apologize. Good grief. Sometimes I don't know if I'm coming or going. And so this meeting reminded me that I had not done that yet. And so I just emailed an update to you, David. But I did get this broken down into phases with a little bit of some description. It's not in your packet because I'm just missing the mark here.
Okay, I can go ahead and add it to the minutes for the packet for the record, and I'm showing it on the screen for anybody.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, if you could pop open the cost estimate. And then we can see the phases. Now, I know we talked about, about $1.5 million here for this phase one. It really is kind of the minimum necessary to put in, sidewalk and appurtenant facilities to a sidewalk. We narrowed this down as much as possible. And so you see the base subtotal comes to just about $1.5 million. And if we're looking at kind of the unknown high contingency there, we're looking at about 1.7.
So Vanessa, that sidewalk, that 6-foot sidewalk, is that cement or is that asphalt?
Concrete.
Concrete? Would asphalt make a difference cutting it down? That 13, well, how much is it? It's 500,000.
It's possible. I mean, asphalt can still be pretty expensive, but it doesn't have like all of the hands-on labor that a sidewalk, curb and gutter would have. Yeah, that's not an apples to apples comparison. And so I'd have to kind of dig in and look at that. But so for talking purposes, would that look like something like we have on First Street as we approach the Crocker Street Bridge, where you have this sort of curb separating an asphalt pedestrian facility from the road? In my mind, that's what you're talking about. Is that right?
I'm not sure what you're driving at, what the question is.
So if we've got an asphalt sidewalk,
Right?
in my mind, that's just an extension of the street surface, extending the street surface out a few more feet.
Wouldn't that be higher? Wouldn't it be a couple feet higher than the street with the curb?
Well, the curb, I see what you're saying. And so you would still have the concrete curb and gutter with an asphalt sidewalk.
Yeah, is that possible?
I think to answer the question, I think it is possible. It's not city standard to have an asphalt sidewalk.
I'm not sure how it would hold up either.
Well, I'm looking at Mike McGuire saying, geez, I can't do 1.5, but I could do $1 million.
He hasn't said any of that.
No, I'm just I'm trying to get it done with no money. I mean,
Yeah, we do have a existing asphalted section along Osseo Road currently. The issue with asphalt is it brings into question, ADA compliance.
Yeah.
It has to be done in a way that's smooth enough to, meet the, rollability. Certainly concrete is a lot more durable than asphalt. And so you kind of weigh the costs and benefits of, you do something that's, you might replace and repair or have more maintenance over time versus something that less. So it's kind of that discussion, and it's not a city standard for it. We'd be doing something that's. Now, asphalt works well for non-sidewalk sections, so I think for the trail, which I think is in a different phase, right? So there
That's an optional third phase, correct?
would be something we definitely consider for, pedestrian trail would be the asphalt surface, but you don't have the curb and gutter with it. You just have really an asphalt surface that lays over, more of a native type surface.
Yeah, because that 8 footer there would run us 200,000. For 760 feet, right? Yeah,
760 tons.
tons, okay. All right, well, just throwing it out there.
Those are good questions. I really do support, though, if we need to do it right. So
Okay.
in 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years, we're not going back and revisiting it, trying to fix potholes and break down. Asphalt tends to break down, I think, a little faster than concrete will. And again, pedestrian safety, if you have a dip in it, and all of a sudden now you got a trip and fall, so it's just not a safe environment. It just takes a lot more. So this is, I appreciate you doing that, so I'll take a look at all that, and then I want to reach out to the supervisors or the our senator's office and bring him into the conversation, so.
So I mean, and I think this is a useful exercise to just help inform us on what are some expected costs. One, to seek funding assistance from our state and federal elected officials, but also for grant applications.
Yeah.
It kind of gives us good numbers to use. You got to keep updating them with the current cost environment. But I mean, it just reflects that the infrastructure costs are for this types of improvement are really, really expensive. And I know Vanessa did work to get, very current data. So these are fairly good cost estimates for what it would truly cost to do the work for this area.
Yeah. Good, so I'm gonna take a look at that, and David, I'll probably be talking to you a little bit about a strategy to submit this whole thing.
Okay. What Vanessa indicated she did send those just during the meeting, so we will we can forward those to subcommittee members. So and they'll be in Granicus as well, so that you can also pull them directly out of Granicus. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for that. That's a lot of work, but I think it's going to be extremely helpful as we move forward. So David, go on.
All right. Next item is park irrigation. So turn over to our park superintendent. Any updates you want to?
No, not really updates. The park irrigation for all parks in L&L districts is currently off. And it's been off since a long time ago, so. Yeah, we're gonna keep it off to hopefully we get some more rain. I know I was looking at the extended forecast and there's some more rain coming for all next week and we started this week, so no, it's currently off and hoping to get some of those late rains too later in the spring to maybe keep them off even longer.
Typically, after you turn them off, is it? I mean, what's the period? Is it kind of October?
Yeah, roughly about depending on weather, we've been having those late. I guess hot October days, but normally around October.
And then when do you typically turn them back on?
Towards the end of, probably towards the end of April, maybe early May, depending on weather, again, but somewhere around there.
So could you give us a quick update on the chipper and the truck, where we're at on that.
Sure. Well, so yeah, so we, the other night, we're working on the agenda report for, city council meeting.
Will be on this.
Yes, it'll be there tomorrow.
Under
And,
consent for approval.
yep.
Yes,
Okay.
went a little over than what we budgeted, but we're gonna use impact fees to fill it out.
Talking to the vendor that was gonna get awarded the chipper. He said he can have the chipper out within a month after we get it approved. And the truck is gonna take a couple months to get it built, so that'll be probably a couple months.
At least it'll be in motion and ready
Yeah.
for, because
We gotta put it aside there, it's put aside.
springtime, when we get ready for fire season again, it's gonna be a lot of chipping.
Right, yeah, so the chipper is outside, it was put aside for us.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that update. Sorry, David.
Oh, yeah. So item 6.6, city grant application submitted to DWR for the citywide drought relief project. We, again, the grant agreement has been executed. We've now attended 2 trainings on the submittal requirements, including the team that's helping us with West Yost and our city's finance staff. We've submitted our first quarterly report already, and are requesting, are identifying, administrative costs, a lot of which are related to, West Yost team. And so we're off and running in terms of the grant itself. Concurrently, a big part of the funding for at least the meter project was approved by council under the program, the turnkey program with PG&E, and we are due to finalize and execute our financing plan on the 12th of next week. So all the documentation will be anticipated to be executed on that date, and so we'll have financing in place. But most of the water meters have been, well, I say most, I think all of them have been, kind of pre-ordered. So our plan will be, it'll be a big project for us. Really starting the next calendar year, 2023, is the AMI meter project. We part of the grant application was to include community outreach. So that was one of the required components of the grant, and worked with Vanessa and her team to prepare an article for the Cloverdale Connect, which was just released last week, providing an update on the AMI project. So we really wanted to cover, and give the community a pretty as detailed overview as we could within the constraints of the article size of kind of a complete picture of that project, including all the different funding elements. So really at this point, we're off and running on that on the AMI project, subject to final financing, and then the other elements, which include the well rehabilitation and replacement and the skater work, are things that we're gonna be coordinating on how we move those elements forward. So we may need to do a RFP and get proposals for the SCADA piece, and likewise for the well projects, which are really critically important as part of bolstering our water supply. So that's in a report on that.
Perfect. Excellent. It's moving.
All right.
in the right direction.
So next item is the per capita funding for the basketball courts. We executed the agreement with Regi. We're currently anticipating the start date of I think it was January 16th. The project has a schedule of 40 working days. I don't think that includes Saturdays and Sundays. So barring any unforeseen circumstances, there may be some rain delays or things that extend those working days. But we'll begin that project in in January. So, we've submitted our first quarterly report on that program. But, you know, we are filling the gap, with impact fees for that project.
Great. Any questions?
No.
Nobody in attendance. David?
Okay, next part is this is the Potter Valley relicensing project. Really, not much to report on that effort. You know, we continue to monitor reservoir levels and track the impact of the FERC decision on the variance that was granted to PG&E to reduce flows. Kevin sits on calls with Sonoma Water where we get periodic updates on the status of the diversions. It sounds like luckily there's been some additional water that's been diverted to kind of help bolster the reservoir levels in Mendocino. But that is a critical issue that we're going to continue to monitor because it can have some real impacts down the road, depending on what happens with the Potter Valley project. There is a move to start to organize around that. There actually will be correspondence on the council agenda next week that there's interest in establishing a water district. I think given that there's strong likelihood that there's going to be a move to monetize the water supply that comes from Potter Valley project to pay for some of the changes and modifications. So you'll see that. I think Senator McGuire is interested in taking this issue up and possibly assisting with state legislation that would form a water district to it's maybe a combination of Sonoma and Mendocino County. You'll see the correspondence in the back end that relates to this issue.
So this would be another one in addition to Sonoma.
Yeah, because Sonoma Water is really not a district. They're responsible for different elements, but I think there's an interest in establishing anything like a state designated entity that might rally around governance issues, fiscal issues like that. It's really at a starting level at this point, and I anticipate a lot more conversation around the impact of the Potter Valley project. Let's see, we talked about item 6.7 already. This is the striping pavement management plan. Oh yes, per capita. So moving on to 6 Acres Mutual Water Company, we're actually been the annexation process is for lack of a better word is accelerating. There's a real interest in moving the annexation of 6 acres forward fairly quickly. So we are coordinating with the state team that's working on this sort of kickoff meeting that's all in early January with the state appointed project manager. It seems like the paperwork that goes to the state seems to take several months to all finalize and execute. And I know that's kind of in the works. And we'll very likely be bringing this forward for council consideration. I guess one of the items we have to determine is it looks like part of pre-zoning part of annexation will be pre-zoning by the planning commission, so we'll have to bring that forward to commission as well as council. But probably council, commission, council, just to kind of check in on the annexation, and go back to commission to make a recommendation on the pre-zoning, which would be reflective of the general plan of land use.
A lot of hoops.
Yeah. See rule 28, nothing no updates on that item. Likewise, no updates on First Street, Crocker Bridge. I'm pretty sure that's just continuing in the design process. Item 13, the broadband funding. I did share an update with council providing an overview of the county's efforts to apply for what's referred to as LATA funds. Given there was such a strong interest in applying, the city looking at applying for funds, that the feedback that I received was that there's going to be multiple initiatives and efforts to obtain funding. And that the first effort was really directed at extension of broadband services to areas that don't have service, period. And that the city, that those really didn't apply to cities so much as unincorporated areas. Because for the most part, cities have broadband services, but there are other issues around the cost of services, the equity, redundancy, and those are kind of, I guess, from a state funding perspective, that are going to be targeted a future funding level or a future funding opportunity. So and the recommendation at this point is keep apprised of the process, track, monitor, and then once you go through this first phase, start looking at kind of phase 2, where we might be more competitive to get grant funds or funding for expanding Wi-Fi service or expanding broadband service first, extending it to areas that don't have it there, because there are some areas, particularly around Cloverdale, unincorporated area, that don't have an broadband period. So residents that are in those areas don't have like a Comcast or any really kind of internet service.
All right.
Okay, so moving forward, the next one is this is a standing item. It was the Ferber Park playground renovation. I think we have materials in the.
Are we gonna tie that in with 15?
Yeah, we should, yes.
Okay, yeah, I think they really do go together. So at last meeting, we did provide, we worked with our a playground consultant to identify some different options for improving the playground structures at Ferber Park. And then part of that recommendation was based on feedback from our park superintendent in consultation or maybe in conversation with some of the residents in the neighborhood. And I don't know, Hector, if you want to just talk about what you experienced.
Sure, Dave, thank you. Yeah, so we've had a few inquiries from a few residents around Ferber Park about the condition and the age of the playground structure at Ferber Park. Not only the main playground structure, but also the swing set. And we've been pretty good about maintaining the equipment. Everything is in good working condition. It's the oldest playground structure in town that we have in our parks. So that's what triggered us going out and starting the conversation on talking with the playground rep to see if they could give us some options, I guess, affordable options to perhaps either add new features to the existing playground or replace the whole playground itself if we could. And she gave us 3 different options that we brought up on the last public works subcommittee meeting. Of course, I had a training, so I wasn't able to attend, but and I guess was supposed to join us, but I had some email exchange from her the last couple of days, and she stated that she wants to come and talk to us. Maybe perhaps she can explain some of these options and better than us. And one of the options would be to replace the existing playground with the whole new playground, which I think it's time. So I think the direction we got last time was for her to come back to us with a better, I guess, to explain the different options to the committee, so we can have a better idea of how much it's going to cost.
Right, I think so, one option was retaining the existing play structure, and then there's adequate space to add additional features around it. That was one of the slides, was to keep the piece we have and add additional elements to kind of add to the fun of the play area.
Before you leave that, just to dive in a little deeper, you said it's in bad shape, so that wouldn't make sense to keep it unless it still has life left to it.
Well, there's there's life on the existing playground, there's life. But it's maybe about a year, but it's time to replace it.
When you say it's deteriorated, what exactly does that mean though?
Well, the playground
Broken, unsafe,
it's not unsafe now, but it's the playground originally was put in when the park was built, which is 20-something years. And normally a playground structure, that's where I was hoping the playground rep would be here to talk. Normally you replace them after 10 to 12 years.
interesting,
And
because it's heavily used.
It was very heavily used.
Very-
We tried in-house for budgetary purposes to save some money. We installed a spiral slide in-house. We did a couple other major repairs in-house to try to save money, because that stuff is so expensive, everything you do with playground. I mean, the spiral slide it's $8,000, I think. Yeah. And so the installation we did in-house, so, but I think my personal opinion, I think it's time to replace it. With something similar for the community out there. For the park.
And there's some really pretty neat new elements. We walked through, there's so many options and different styles and brands, and it's kind of narrowing it down. And I think some of the ones that were shown in the presentation were ones we walked through kind of all the different equipment and said, well, this, given the space, because there's options that are made for much larger playground areas, kind of honed in on a couple that we thought might be critical. I think identifying ones with shade elements for
Heat, yeah.
and it might actually prolong the life, because some of it's not in the sun. It's
Right.
Well, I'm kind of looking. I'm looking at this spin round top with deck. That looks like a lawsuit to me. I mean, that thing, it's towards the end, picture wise, it's down here.
the spin round top with deck.
Yeah, I could just see
those
somebody
could be-
flying right off the top of that baby.
I just quit playing for one of those when I was a kid. It did.
But that's before a lawyer looked on it before.
That's true.
So, but you know, I'm not gonna question what needs to be replaced or not. I just want to geographically talk about the location of everything in the park. You know, the next item is the pickleball, the beanbag toss and bocce courts. You know, I think that beanbag toss belongs over in City Park. And simply because there's not as many houses there. And I fear that if we put that beanbag toss where the horseshoe pits are now at the Ferber Park, it's just gonna create noise for the residents that live there. I mean, let's face it, I think it's a more vocal group that would be using those beanbags. So I think they belong over in Second Street, and there's plenty of room. It's a 27-foot run you need. So I think they would fit there. And I'd still, at Ferber Park, like to see that swing set moved, maybe to where the bocce ball courts are. I'm sorry, where the horseshoes are, and put that second pickleball court there, if there's room. And I think we got a letter from Brad today making that recommendation as well.
Oh, we did? Oh.
Yeah, I
I
think,
said it for.
yeah, but you know, I'm not gonna question Hector whether they need to be replaced. If you say they need to be replaced, replace them, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just concerned about the layout.
Yeah.
And how can we get another pickleball court there for now, yet still maintain the swings?
So I went out there before the meeting about 10 o'clock today after we were done with the boulevard. And I went and took some measurements at Ferber Park. And just some of the, and just, I'm just giving you guys the information, some of the stuff that I gathered from my visit today there, was to accommodate the additional pickleball court. It triggers a couple more things than the one we built up there. That one was kind of, it was a perfect location. This one, there's an existing, reconfiguring the trail, so we would have to reconfigure the trail. We would have to remove the existing swings and relocate them somewhere else. We would have to remove a section of the trail. Another thing is we would have to remove a couple of trees. And the one that's the bigger major issue there is there's a 12-inch sewer main that goes by there. And then I'm just looking at the map, I would have to check with Jay from wastewater to so he can help me identify the exact location.
Right.
And then, of course, the rerouting irrigation. I just wanted to let you guys.
And Hector, I know you mentioned that in that location, because the slope that, I know where there's the swings and that's flat, but then to accommodate the pickleball, it drops off, and
Yeah.
you were saying it would require retaining walls.
We would have to reroute a few irrigation lines there, and then maybe build a small retaining wall to keep the water and stuff coming.
Well, what about at Vintage Meadows? Did we have a chance to look
I did.
at that spot?
So I did go to Vintage Meadows. I was trying to print out the picture. There's enough room to put one at Vintage Meadows on the western side of the basketball courts, not on the south. Because I looked at the south, I guess the east side of the basketball courts, and it's kind of sloped. But on the west side, there's a nice flat area, right directly across
From where the basketball court is to the street?
to the street. There's enough room there.
Wow.
But again, there's, the reconfiguring the irrigation lines, and of course, another thing that triggers that you brought up on the last meeting, I looked at the meeting before I came here on the recording. It's an L&L district, so that's all that stuff we need to work, work itself
So
out.
that legality.
And sure that-
Yeah.
So Hector, this is this is Vintage Meadows.
Yeah.
Were you saying to the west?
Yeah, this section here.
Okay.
There's enough room there for two of them.
But even though it's an L&L, in other words, the city can't charge the L&L district for the cost for that. That would be a city cost as far as ongoing maintenance as well. So it would have no impact on their dues or fees or. Yeah.
But that's what loan, I think, because we pick up the cost of that. For the maintenance.
Yeah, so the L&Ls, this is the one part where we determined that they're, it's utilized by other members of the community beyond just the residents. So it has a greater public benefit, and it's part of that public benefit that's calculated in the engineering report. And that portion of the cost is attributable to the general fund. And one of the key components of that right now is the restrooms. So the restrooms basically, and we recognize, might attract additional residents. So and I think so the pickleball construction cost and the maintenance would likely be a general fund item.
But just to go back, because you remember this, that park didn't have restrooms.
Right.
Okay, so that was something we went through that process because we felt every park should have restrooms, and that's where the analysis was done, and it was determined we could put them in, but that would be a city cost, and the city couldn't pass that cost on to maintain them. So what was put with the L&L is all they're responsible for. All the additions, enhancements becomes a general city funded program. But again, it is a city park used by the community as a whole. And we have land there that we can improve to make things happen. That benefits the community.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is figure out all of these projects we want to do and see how much money we have at the dog park, the basketball, potential lighter ranch. What am I missing here? Updates to further play equipment. And maybe
Possibly Bumgarner Ranch as
yeah,
well.
potentially. So
Well, I'm just concerned right now, to be honest with you, about getting the beanbag courts set up. Like I said, I think City Park can handle at least 2, if not 3. And then a second pickleball, And per Brad's letter,
Yeah.
and I have to agree with him, Ferber Park would be the best location.
And I agree with you
Yeah.
too, but not at the expense of removing
No,
the equipment.
Just relocate.
Relocate, that's perfect, but not removing it. It's too heavily used.
And do you have a sense, because the strip of area where we have the horseshoe pits existing, it's quite a bit, it's a linear configuration
Yeah,
compared to the springs, the swing sets, it's more of a round.
yeah, I think this is where we probably had to bring in the playground miracle, rep. Cause that's close, kind of close to the road too, right there, so we have to get all the specifications and how far we can get the swings from the road and the swinging there's a swing measurement this way and this way, so that's what she was trying to stop. Yeah.
well, you had mentioned, Hector, that you thought that we'd reduce that 4-seat swing
Yeah.
to 2. Were you still thinking along those
Yeah,
lines?
when last time we met here, we had that tire swing, so we were proposing of removing the existing swings and adding a smaller, kind of like a tire swing.
Smaller.
Where 2 or 3 kids can get on at the same time, and then still have like a smaller for tots for 2 to 5 little kids, the little bucket seats.
Right.
And that would decrease the footprint of the area.
Yeah, I think our preliminary back to napkin cost estimate would be, it'd probably be about twice the cost. At least to deliver the second pickleball court.
Ferber.
At Ferber.
But at Vintage Meadows, it would be probably comparable to.
About the same, I think it's better than probably be somewhere if that was the case. And the only thing we would need to do is, again, reroute the irrigation lines and configure them in a way to still water the rest of the park. There's a
Yeah, and
couple.
get rid of the turf there would be.
Yeah, there's a 3-inch main that goes through there. We have to reconfigure and bring it back around.
Now, when you say the same, you're referring to the first one we put in?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to come up with those numbers until we.
No, but it's comparable.
Yeah.
Well, I have mixed feelings. I still think I'd like to see him at Ferber and both parks, but I really think having people have to get in the car or kids have to walk all the way to Ferber that live in the Vintage Meadows area. And there's a lot of kids playing pickleball. I was really surprised how many are out there.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, ideally, if they're in the neighborhoods, they don't have to drive or walk those long distance just to go play.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of like to see them both, maybe do Vintage Meadows now and then look at how we expand them as it continues to grow, right? Keeping people in their home areas so they don't have to walk or drive to play a game of pickleball.
Well, I also think, Joe, that the beanbag courts would be utilized a lot by the kids as well.
Especially if you mentioned it at City Park.
Yeah.
I think it was like, they're pretty, not too expensive. They're like $7,000 for 2 of them. And we already have a run. We had a couple runs of there from the existing horseshoe.
Yeah.
It's been so that, and that's nice, solid surface with a base and sand. And that's something we can do in-house. We can prepare the runway.
Yeah.
Save us a little bit of money there. Sure.
Well, I like Kevin's idea to kind of put all these, we want it all.
Yeah.
Your job is to.
Where's the money?
Show us how we're gonna do it all, because we're gonna be happy, right?
Pickleball for this, the Ferber Park.
Well, I agree, we need some type of a master plan list. But I'd also simultaneously like to see us move forward with a location for the pickleball court in the beanbags.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's nice to have this list, but here's what we'd like to move right to the.
Well,
That's
that's,
what you meant, Kevin?
well, what I think you did is identify that you and the council will put the priority is which one's gonna be 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And the funding to pay for it, how he looks at
It's
it.
gonna help.
We have a real opportunity for a dog park. It's, things are moving forward. It's gonna be our grand, 150,000. So.
No, that will be laid out.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, our next step is, when we staff talked today was, laying out all the projects, laying out the costs, laying out our fund balance. And then bringing that to council for a conversation around what's the top priorities. Here's what we have on the docket and then, you know. Getting direction on, you know, what do you want staff to move forward?
And I'd like to encourage that we look at it, what can we do in-house? What can we do? Do we need to just go out to contract and have it all done?
Yeah.
Or can we do pieces in-house? And, so that's important. And then, gosh, I know you know this. I mean, we have some pretty good service clubs in town that may also, we may want to come up with a strategy when we make presentations to help identify funding for these community programs. And they get behind some of these and they will help fund some of this stuff. We have to kind of get that master list, come up with a plan, and then we can come up with a strategy, the best way to fund it.
Well, I don't know, but I'd like to say, I know that the service clubs would definitely love to help out the kids.
Yeah.
In the playground structures,
That's
how
what
they zero in that, as opposed to an adult pickleball court.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, even like the bean, the cornhole, the bean bag, that's something it's a smaller project. Something like the Lions, I'm not speaking of the Lions Club, something like some of these clubs would come in and be like, hey, I'll donate half of it. If you put a plaque out there or something like that, and then that could be something we could explore.
They've been very helpful in some
Yeah.
of these projects. So I think the master plan with cost and what we can do in-house should be laid out really clearly. And then a strategy as we move forward on what can we afford to do today as priority. And then what can we maybe solicit input and help from the different service levels. Yeah, I mean, they took Kaiser Park on, did a good job, and they did the barbecue pits at City Park. I mean, they've done a lot of these
work,
a lot of projects, a lot of money, but they get behind these. So, I mean, obviously they can't do them all, but we can maybe piece it together where we got multiple things going on.
well, especially the Lions Club, now that their prime source of income has been, still on, or, yeah.
Not
It's not removed, so
Yeah.
maybe now's the time to get them.
Really spending that.
All right, well, good. That's a good conversation. Thank you so much. So that'll come back when next meeting, you think you'll have the list? I mean, the projects that you kind of know, we've talked about them. And we
We have it in our head, we just need to.
yeah, and then we also know what we have in the bank. I mean, we can look at the different funding things, that's available funds. And then,
The estimating will be.
yeah.
More.
Yeah,
Hey, anything else stated on this?
I mean, it's.
and let's not forget Tom and too. You know,
Yeah, so the Tarman playground structure is actually a really good thing. It's the newest one we got, one of the newest ones we got. We were there a couple days ago, we were there doing minor adjustments, but it's actually in good condition. One of the nice playground structures, the biggest one we got. It's like a 3-decker, it's a 3-story, it's huge. It's really nice. It's probably the nicest one we got.
now, is that park, for lack of a better phrase, being respected?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it being, it's a big hangout at night for drugs like it used to be?
No, the vandalism that we used to, endure back then, it stopped. We have that camera out there. And another thing we did, we removed a couple climbing structures that the vandals were using to hide behind.
Gotcha.
So we removed those and we added a couple other things that where they can't hide. And then we also limbed up the trees as high as we could. So they can't get in there. We installed better lighting. We added a couple lights in there, better light bulbs, I should say. So right now, I mean, I'm the one that gets, knock on wood, I'm the one that gets all the phone calls for vandalism, and it's been pretty good. Been pretty good the last couple of years. Good.
So speaking of vandalism, we had our pickleball course, there was a family down there with their little kid riding their little scooters around the pickleball court. I was watching them and I'm like, I don't think that's a good use for them. Fortunately, they were small kids and they were being destructive, but they were definitely riding around the nets and I only seen it one time, and most times I go by it frequently just to kind of check it out. So I live just up the street, so I'm always going by it. And it's heavily used by people playing pickleball or learning. But I did see that, and I know a suggestion was made by Brad when he was here regarding potentially locking them up after hours, like they do the tennis courts at the high school. And I'd like to see if you have any conversations or consideration of that. I'd like to see where the police department locks up the restrooms, locks up the pickleball courts, and then in the morning, whoever unlocks the restroom would unlock the pickleball courts. Yeah, I don't think anybody should be in there when it's after dark.
No.
And that's when they lock the restrooms. That would be perfect time.
Let me see if I can, like I can do first thing for tomorrow morning. I have time today to go look at it, see if we could figure out a way to put a padlock or some type of lock, or just to see how we can do the gate. And we can figure it. And then maybe talk to the PD, see.
Yeah, because they lock the restrooms.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that big of a deal to just lock those.
Yeah.
At the same time. And then in the morning, I think one of your crew.
Yeah.
They would unlock it, and they're open all day.
Sure. Brad was there at 7:15 this morning.
Brad a key.
Oh, what's it?
You was there like 7:20. Look, you get a freeze out here. What are you doing out here?
Was he playing?
What's that?
Was he playing?
No,
He
he's
saw Hector, so he came over.
Yeah, he said he had to take measurements. I said, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, we got an email, so I take the measurements, but no, he was out there walking his dog.
Does a couple of walks every day. Yeah, that was early. All right, well, thank you for that. All right, we can move on to 6:16,
Okay, street maintenance, I think
street light.
street light maintenance,
That is a problem.
we, that's an area we're still working on, getting a scope to assist us like we do with our street signals. I think Vanessa had reached out and we'll follow up to bring the scope back by maintenance services.
Well, my understanding is you can't get the parts. My understanding is, Craig, I know I spoke to him about it. And he cannot, he's been on the phone and they don't have parts for these lights. So it's getting down to a point, you gotta look at, some are working, some aren't. The ones that aren't, there's 3 or 4 in a row that aren't in some locations. So we got to come up with either a short-term fix by getting a different type of light in there, so we have light until we do a uniform change, or start looking at what's the future light can look like and start phasing those in, because they can't fix the lights.
Yeah, and I mean, our hope, with, Republic ITS, service we use for our signals, but we also contracted them with our recent downtown decorative lights. So because they're a large company, they have access to more vendors and suppliers. They helped us get some of the equipment that was necessary. I know Craig wasn't entirely happy with some of the new spec equipment now that's coming out. So it's an area where it requires some specialty expertise. It's just and our hope is, I think, with getting a contract service, we'll have access to some of those parts, and if not, we'll just start doing it, and we'll have to just replace those fixtures with something that well, sure we have to stock for in the future.
And it's not like we have to replace the poles, it's just cuts up. So,
Okay, so that's moving forward, and then the last item under 6 would be the review of the parking requirements for South Cloverdale Boulevard.
Yeah, this was triggered by the parking concerns in front of Cherry Creek Village. There's some no parking demarcations that don't provide for parking. So it's an issue where it's allowed in certain areas and not allowed in others. Coming up with a consistent standard. Was there anything, Vanessa, that you wanted to share? It's still a work in progress that we need to look at in more detail.
Yeah, there's no new updates, and outreaching to the developer out there at Cherry Creek Village, she seemed fine that it was a no parking zone. She just wanted to be aware. And so I think this can get looked at holistically when we look at that whole area out there, you know, potentially evaluating a mid-block crosswalk, safety improvements to get across the bridge. And so we've got no updates at this time.
So we're down to future agenda items.
Yeah.
Discuss the water building process.
This, I was, requested by Vice Mayor Walter last time. I think, we just, hadn't had enough time to complete that evaluation, and this was, for those cities that, they have a different methodology for setting their wastewater rates. And the way they do that is to look at an average of water use during the winter months. And then they base your wastewater rates on the
Difference.
and so really what we're gonna do is just look at that process and bring back an update. Ultimately, if we want to go in that direction, we'll have to do a new Prop 218 process to revise the rate structure. So it's a little more in-depth evaluation that's required. And the entities that do it tend to have much higher wastewater rates. So and because of the tertiary treated systems that they implement, so that's kind of what triggers that process. But we'll bring back more overview of that of their processes and see if that's something.
Weren't we looking to get a grant to review the wastewater and how to Shrewsbury to where are we at on that?
Yeah, so we brought forward a scope of work from West Yost to do the feasibility study for advanced treatment wastewater plant. We applied for a grant to fund 50% of the cost of that at work. And I haven't heard back, Vanessa. I don't know if you've heard anything in terms of PG&E.
In terms of PG&E,
Our PG&E grant application for the advanced water treatment study.
we have not heard yet, no updates, but I will reach out to my grant coordinator and ask her if she can follow up with the status about that.
Thank you.
You know, just another future agenda item, if we're done with that. Every time I go to mail a letter at the post office and I do that loop around, the orange porta potty is sitting there with the door open. And nobody's in there, but there's toilet paper all over the floor, there's trash all over. Is there any way they could put a spring on that where the door just closes behind you? I know most of them have that. But the door's flung wide open for everybody to look inside the porta potty.
Which brings up a question. Where are we at with the restrooms downtown?
Yeah, so the
Fine print.
porta potty, that's being provided as a service out of contract by Recology, and they reminded me kindly that's an expense that they incurred that's not provided for in the franchise agreement. So they'll be happy as soon as we say, please pull that.
Well, I'll go check and see if there's a spring that maybe came off the door.
I'll look at, I'll look at it tomorrow.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've asked about maintenance in the past. I've inquired and I quickly get reminded that we're lucky to get what we have. So kind of,
We should have put something in the franchise agreement when you brought it forward. We could have added that.
right. Well, it's kind of an old hangover from the previous service provider. They had an ancillary company that provided the Rattler Group. They had a porta potty company, whereas Recology doesn't offer that. So they actually contracted out as an extra service for them that they don't have that business model anymore. So it's out of pocket for them to
Once we get the restroom.
exactly. So to that question, the restroom is scheduled to be delivered. I think it's December 23rd,
22nd.
22nd.
Whoa.
And At that time, it's a, constructed offsite, be brought in with a crane. Kevin's gonna be coordinating the delivery, because it'll likely be done through the city hall parking lot, craned in. Regi the contractor doing the underground, will also come back to do the finish work around it'll have a pad, the bathroom will, but around that and the remaining paving will be done at that time. So
Now, where will it be assembled?
it comes pretty simple.
It's a crane just drops it right down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
you say the 23rd, we'll see a structure.
you'll see a structure be brought in, and what they should do at that point is connect the water, wastewater, electricity to it, and which I think will take a day or two.
Yeah, base.
And I mean, basically, they're gonna sit in, connect it up, and it'll be operational.
Ready to go.
But then we'll do the finished work. Regi will come in and make sure everything conforms around this new restroom. So, and finish the paving into the plaza stage area.
Yeah.
So we were talking about when was that work gonna be done, and we thought, well, it makes sense, have them
Yeah.
come back, do it all at once the restroom is placed.
They were planning on sending everybody a notification letter, email, and maybe just going out there and physically talking to the. Just to make sure
No
that,
one can be back here.
yeah, because it's such a large truck that's gonna come in. Kevin and I had met with the crane operator the other day. That's gonna be handling the structure from the trailer over that wall into the pad. So it's pretty easy, because this would be better for them to access. The back parking lot here would be better as far as access, because there's less obstacles for you to lift the restrooms over. And they made it seem like it could be done in a few hours, and then from there on, Regi will come in and connect to utilities.
To come down with a cup of coffee and watch it.
Yeah, it's I can just.
So the 22nd or the 23rd?
Yeah, I
22nd.
22nd. Send the confirmation.
Yeah,
Just
the
in case.
23rd, they'll probably
Finish it, yeah, I'm planning on, I delayed my vacation too, I wanted to make sure that, I wanted to be here, but,
Well,
just looking, I won't be having a good time if I know that something.
I want to have the first.
So planning on meeting with the operator first thing in the morning, to go over the logistics so we can. Lift the thing over there, take a video picture and all that, so it's good.
Great. Any future agenda items? Good.
And so once that's done, we'll ask Recology to remove that.
Yeah.
Fine, so. Get it out of.
All right, well, then, with no further business, thank you, staff, thank you. Vice Mayor,
Yes,
Vanessa, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with all of you all these years. This would be my last public works.
oh, you won't come back.
Me?
Come back, yeah.
So, when I do, it'd be because some of these things are still on this agenda that I want done. No, but thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. So we're gonna adjourn our regular meeting to the new, public safety or public, works subcommittee members who yet to be named, right? The, January 24th of 2023. This says 22, but actually 23.